Hi, everyone. I'm Constance Sayers, president of GovExec 360, and I'm excited to welcome you to Fueling Federal Progress, Keys to Zero Trust, Cloud, and AI, brought to you by Presidio Federal and Cisco. Across the federal government, many of the business processes that agencies rely on are both costly and manual. In an environment that's becoming increasingly more digitized, how can organizations best utilize zero trust architecture, AI, and cloud services to be at the forefront of digital modernization? Well, we've got a fantastic panel of experts to answer these questions and more. I'd like to welcome Jennifer Franks, Director of the Center for Enhanced Cybersecurity at the GAO, U.S. Government Accountability Office, and John Kim, Vice President of Solutions and Services for Presidio Federal. Jennifer and John, thank you both for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thanks for having me as well.
That's great. Okay, so before we begin, I just want you both to share a little bit more about your role at your organization and how it ties into today's conversation. So Jennifer, I'm going to start with you.
Yes, absolutely. So my name is Jennifer Franks, and I serve as the Director for the Center for Enhanced Cybersecurity at GAO. And I've been at GAO for 18 years, and I do all things cyber, and cyber is just my heart and goal passion. And I serve two different missions for GAO. So outward facing, I serve the mission of Congress. So we get requests and legislative mandates to go in and look at how agencies are protecting our information systems. And my teams rather, look at the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of information systems and the data that resides on those systems. And then inward facing to GAO, I have cybersecurity specialists that are helping to just sustain our computing infrastructure environment, as well as provide technical assistance across the various teams and mission of GAO.
Great. Well, thank you so much. And John, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, I've been with Presidio for over 7 years. I've been in the federal industry, working primarily in contracting consulting capacity for the federal government and through multiple agencies. And what I do at Presidio, I'm the VP of leading our pre-sales consulting team, as well as our services team, which encompasses doing projects, execution, and delivery. Basically, what we promise and focusing on making sure we execute on what we promise our customers and helping them achieve their mission.
That's great, John. Thank you. Well, as technology is constantly evolving, how can federal agencies, you both are experts, how can federal agencies stay agile and adaptable to emerging threats and opportunities in tech? I'm going to start with you, Jennifer. I mean, you and I've talked about this. I know you have a day job, yet you have all this new stuff constantly, like AI, to contend with. I mean, how do you balance it all?
That's a good question. And I do have a day job. And the threats and vulnerabilities from around the globe sometimes take away some of the thrill of the day job, because they're only increasing. Cybersecurity incidents are just always going to occur. And it's something that we have to embrace and just kind of deal with, to be honest. And to be honest, in the cybersecurity specialist world, we actually get a thrill out of them. And it's zero trust when we're thinking about how we're kind of moving towards that new wave of how we're protecting our environment. It's something that really we're striving to seek the opportunities for lessening some of those damages that is going to occur to some of those incidents, because it's not an if, it's a when, some of the things that are going to occur. So we're looking for ways to perhaps making it a little bit more difficult for these bad actors to move laterally through our various IT environments when they do happen to breach our different computing infrastructures. In addition, we're looking for ways that we need to be cognizant of making sure that we know what's in our inventory, our software and our hardware assets. It's just critically important that we're cognizant of managing our IT assets, providing strong multi-factor authentication, continuous monitoring of our user and our device behaviors, and even many other cybersecurity tools and strategies, because organizations are going to be rapidly deploying some of these technologies. It's really going to be the basic components and the emerging technologies that are really going to have to be working collaboratively together, where we're going to have to be looking at how we're managing them across our different environments how we're managing the threat surfaces, where we're looking at providing the right access to those devices, providing them to the right users at the right time, and enhancing the cybersecurity resiliency of those different devices.
And definitely, so you can't really build on anything until you have a good foundation. And I think that that's definitely something that I think both of you are going to be talking about. John, I'm going to turn to you for the next question. When an agency is switching from manual and more costly processes to more streamlined and digital ones, and digitized ones, what are some of the primary challenges that federal agencies face?
Yes, so a couple of hurdles. First, many of the agencies are working with decades old systems and they're complex. So it makes it very difficult to simply replace or simply update the software or the components. So adapting to some of these new digitalizations and technologies require some custom solutions to be involved. Because these legacy systems, they just don't plug and play as easily as some of these newer technologies. And that's a little bit more time consuming of an effort. Second is, in order to ensure the smooth transition for some of these employees, keep in mind, these employees have been using these systems, again, for decades, and they're not accustomed to switching. So this, moving them when they're accustomed to these manual workflows requires some well thought out plan and onboarding them through these training programs and various different tools in place. So you have to move not only the technology, but as well as the staff and team to support it. And finally, of course, is, as you digitize anything compared to doing manual, now you're worrying about digital data security and new compliance concerns or regulations around that, because you're adapting to new systems that didn't exist. So you have to go through the slow, arduous, process of adapting to those as well.
And it really is interesting. It's often not the technology. It is the cultural, the adoption and the training and the skill set, and just change that you're basically, it's less about technology and more about change in people always. In the 20-some years I've been doing these, it's always the case. I do want to talk about zero trust. We talk about it a lot. I mean, just for everyone to understand, zero trust is really a framework that defines all devices as basically untrusted by default. So there's a lot of authentication, a lot of validation that happens to just basically say that this is a person that can be trusted for this data or this application or this device. So Jennifer, I'm going to ask you this question. What specific benefits does a zero trust architecture offer to federal agencies in terms of securing their digital infrastructure?
That's a good question. And it really is going to be more modern and more effective way of protecting our assets. And, earlier I spoke about the inventory. You can't protect what you don't know we have. And working at GAO, I've worked for 18 years now, going in and out of various federal agencies. And that's actually the foundational problem that we end up seeing, is asking agencies, where's your inventory foundation? And a lot of agencies just don't have a composite list of your inventory, of your assets. And zero trust at the foundation, you're going to have to be able to identify all of your assets. And zero trust components are needing to be implemented correctly are going to have to be tied to those assets. So for example, O&B guidance, there's CISA guidance as well. All of the zero trust models, if implemented, are going to continually have us authorizing users and authorizing those devices where we can help ensure that everyone has the right access to the right resources at the right time. And when you no longer need that access, we're going to revoke it. But right now, what it is we're doing, we're all using, where we've been for quite some time, a more traditional perimeter security-based model, where all of us as users typically log in at the beginning of the day, and we authenticate into the network. And we usually just do it that one time, which is inherently a less secure infrastructure model, but we're more trusting in that capacity at this time. And we're going to move away from that once zero trust gets fully implemented. Because of this, we're going to implement stronger network segmentation. And that's going to be really a key part of zero trust, because when you think about the evolving cyber threats and vulnerabilities and cyber attacks, that is, we're going to get to literally focusing on, it's not an if, it's a when things are going to occur again. And we're going to look at the overall aspects of how we're going to just be better situationally aware and how we can better protect the data within our various organizations and all the threats that are going to be happening as we can laterally identify all the things across our various environments.
That's really a great explanation. And from your perspective, John, what are some of the essential zero trust principles that federal agencies should prioritize to enhance their security across their digital infrastructure? You've been, doing this a long time. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you all are seeing.
Yes, absolutely. So around zero trust architecture, or we commonly refer in the engineering community, we like to abbreviate everything, ZTA, right? It's less intrusive, I guess. Again, focusing on the concept of least privilege, right? Having access to data and systems in order to eliminate concerns around both external attacks or as well as threats from within, right? We focus on primarily in the 5 main pillars of zero trust. And the principles really around that is continuous verification, which is every access attempt requires authentication. And the authentication could be used with such as multi-factor authentication. As well as, authentication could go be a little bit more further than that too, is knowing, what device, what location you're authenticating from. So it's not purely about users saying, I've got a user credential, I'm valid, I'm coming. It should be based on some of the policies written out. Can that user from where they are have access from the location, whether if they're working at a different site, purely on authentication shouldn't allow them to have access. So there's a little bit more intelligence on that as well, which is kind of a role-based, and as well as a type of device they might be authenticating. So on that verification piece, least privilege, again, focusing on the users, as well as systems, having access only to the resources and data in order to get the task done. So we focus zero trust a lot on users because yes, that is sometimes the weakest point in the chain. But also we talk about systems. So zero trust principles on least privilege shouldn't be just talking about users. It should also be about systems and applications having limited access and only access to the systems they should. And you can go a little bit more on that. Systems should only have access to certain portion of the data. Let's say you restrict on a certain time of day, meaning should systems, in case of some breach that happened, should that system have access to a certain database on the off hours of the night on its own? No. So you should think about those least privileges as well. So not just containing on users. And importantly, yes. So we hear a lot of terms called microsegmentation and network segmentation. End of the day, it's segmentation. It's, you're dividing your network, you're dividing into smaller segments, which limits what I like to call damage radius. So if you build security on that, back in the day, we used to build security saying, we're going to build security so nothing bad can happen. Now we build security on resiliency and how to reduce damage when a potential breach or threat has occurred. So doing segmentation allows you to, what I continue to say is minimizing the damage and exposure of that potential breach, and that's when it has occurred. And segmentation is a great way to do that. Again, you're building different segments. So when something bad happens, you're eliminating that exposure across lateral movements in your system. So those are, I would say, the 3 key principles.
That's great. Thank you very much. And Jennifer, I don't know if anything you'd add to that, just because you're kind of putting a lot of that in practice at your agency. Did that really resonate with you?
It did. I mean, everything he said, I totally agree with. One of the key things that he was mentioning, it's honestly going to be a full paradigm shift with how we conduct business for our organizations. And it's not just going to be something that we have to focus on for those of us that are IT specialists or cybersecurity specialists. And it's going to be something that is going to require buy-in from agency executive leadership down to the technical implementation staff for each user or your enterprise to fully understand these new cybersecurity protections that are going to be in place. It's going to be a full educational reset. And we're going to have to do this to just avoid going back into those old behaviors. And kind of as new tools and technologies are rapidly deploying, we're going to have to just be cognizant of staying ahead of the curve best we can so that we are providing all of the necessary resources to our staff so that they can help us to be mindful of all the things that they even see to help us to be diligent in cybersecurity principles and additional protections across the environment.
And it's definitely, when you are, working in that environment, I mean, I know myself, it's like, the multi-factor authentication, it's like, okay, again, but like, it does keep everything secure. But again, like we talked about earlier, it's not always the technology, it's culture, and it's getting your staff to, adopt, and your leadership to adopt too. It's not just the overall staff. So that's great.
Yeah, but even explaining what that is, a lot of people who don't do cyber, they hear it, but they don't even understand the context behind what it is and why it matters. So breaking down the what and the why is going to be really important in this context.
That's great. No, thank you. And Jennifer, I'm going to continue with you and just switch a little bit here to talk about cloud computing. What do you see are some of the benefits that cloud computing can really provide to federal agencies looking to transform their processes? How important is it?
So that's a good question. And so cloud computing has been something that we've been striving to migrate our resources to effectively for quite some time. And this is going to help us to reduce some overheads, reduce some costs, procure some services at operating and maintaining these abilities to perhaps save some taxpayer money, which is always a benefit. Information at the data level instead of at the network level is also another added benefit. And by doing so, agencies can often improve the overall security and privacy posture, empowering them to really embrace cloud technologies and then also fully embrace other technologies and tools while maintaining the additional confidentiality and integrity and availability of their data that's placed in the cloud. But what's going to be key is, as you're working with cloud service providers, is not taking a hands-off approach, having still a working relationship to provide that necessary oversight and working relationship and coordinating with your cloud service provider, because it's still your data. So how they manage and how they process and hold on to carrying out the means of providing those networking services in the cloud for your agency's data, it's still going to be important for you as an agency to know how it is they're managing the services of your data. But realizing such benefits, it's just going to help with scalability, speed to market. It's going to help us with new applications and workload demands and approaches. So there's a lot of benefits with cloud computing.
That's great. John, anything you want to add to that too? Just want to give you a chance to respond and talk a little bit about cloud computing if you feel like that.
Yeah. Just so I love Jennifer's point of view. It's great because all I think about is from the technical side and the engineering side, and it's wonderful to hear that. So from my perspective, I'm focusing on what cloud computing offers is primarily scalability, right? So agencies can easily adjust their computing needs and resources up and down on a as needed basis. That was the whole principles of that. So it's not just once, you having to buy small, medium, large. It's one size fits all based on how your demand is. Focusing on cost efficiency. Again, only leveraging some of the cloud services and that you need eliminates then having to buy everything on site and having to build an infrastructure to support some of those capabilities and needs. And lastly, improve the collaboration. So one of the things that we've seen from we talk about culture changes that you have you facilitate more in working with different departments. You tend to facilitate more leveraging that cloud resource and application between different teams and different departments. Because when you're leveraging, say, cloud-based storage and applications, it's not in one department or one physical location. It's actually in the cloud, in the managed data center. So a lot of the departments tend to share some of those costs as well. So I like that, collaboration. I think that's very needed within different IT teams to work across different groups. So improved collaboration is one of the things that I take away from
improve collaboration, improve cost. Yeah, that's really a great point. Definitely. Thank you, John. And I'm going to now turn to everyone's favorite topic, AI. And Jennifer, how are federal agencies implementing or planning to implement AI technologies? And what should people be considering, about AI? It is everyone's favorite topic, but let's.
Is it? I'm a AI butt person. I'm a cybersecurity specialist, so I'm here. AI is here and it's here to stay, right? But I'm always going to give you, let's embrace it, let's enhance it, let's implement it. But we cannot stop talking about the cybersecurity risks and the privacy related implications that are going to be introduced with more of the generative AI that's going to be out here. So I'm a little risk averse, but we are definitely taking heed to the new orders that have come out with us striving to implement more AI across the federal government. And of course, here at GAO, we have definitely issued some reports. We've done quite a bit of work. And as we're seeing across the federal government, a lot of folks are starting to implement and take some strides in doing some things. And of course, it's going to be a work in progress. Specifically, the Department of Defense has noted that AI technology is going to be poised to transform some of the warfare used to enable machines that could potentially maneuver and change tactics to speed human operators aren't unable to perform, which is going to be helpful in combat command. This is going to be a very costly exercise. So we're going to be looking at some developments over the next few years or so. We've also started looking at AI in the medical area, healthcare, and how that can transcend some of the diagnosis errors that are being made by humans. And, looking at how machine learning technologies could be helpful in identifying hidden or perhaps very complex diagnostic data to perhaps detect diseases a little earlier and maybe even improve treatment for special cases that are going to help medical professionals diagnose cancers or diabetic renal therapy and Alzheimer's diseases or heart diseases or perhaps pandemics like COVID. And the rise of AI, everyone's still excited, right? And with all the debates that are going around, significant concerns in education about how we're protecting our intellectual property, we're just going to have to be cognizant of how we're using these technologies and looking at the continued development of the technologies, the advanced speed. And federal oversight is going to be key. And the oversight is being developed and documented. We at GAO have developed a key practices guide. And within the key practices guide, it's organized based on 4 key principles: governance, data, performance, and monitoring. And if federal agencies strive to implement some of their AI technologies and tools or programs using our key practices guide, especially for monitoring, for example, you could think about how your AI systems could be used to be a little bit reliable and more relevant over time. And the framework itself, it's an accountability framework. It was really going to be helpful in helping federal agencies to just think about how to best use AI a little bit more responsibly.
That's great. I mean, that really, really great things to think about. I'm glad that GAO is taking on some of these. John, let's talk a little bit about balance. How can federal agencies address the complexities of digital transformation? I mean, some of the great tools we just talked about, while they maintain high standards of security and compliance. I mean, that's definitely, I know, things that probably, keep you up at night, but, what's that? How do you strike that balance?
Yes. So I think the term we use is taking a holistic approach, looking at everything, right? Not just down to just a siloed view of it. So I prioritize, I would say prioritizing a zero trust principles, integrating security in pretty much every stage of this transformation process. Because if you leave security out of that transformation process, then you're having to spend a little more cycles and time trying to wedge the model of security in it. It's much better to know where to take that in from the very beginning. Also, I think we talked a little bit, in the discussion today, is continuous monitoring systems for vulnerabilities are critical. It's part of it should be. It's not. I think Jennifer said it's not one and done and take your hands off. It's continuous evolution. So continuous monitoring, visibilities for new vulnerabilities. That has to be part of your standard textbook. That's part of that. And importantly is make sure you have clear, defined principles and standards that you go by. And the great thing is that a lot of these standards or guidelines, have already been written. There's in the commercial sector, a lot of these, you could consider commercial sector as a way of a guinea pig. Even with AI, commercial and the private sector is already using and testing AI in multiple ways. And they're kind of exposing themselves as to me as a test of how they use AI and what works and what the challenge and exposure to be. And the government, federal and the public sector can observe that and watch that and see what they need to do in order to address that. So the good news is you don't have to be first in this digital transformation. The private sector is already doing it, and you can take the best and use some of the lessons learned out of that. And so that said, leveraging the right partners, using their passive performance to help get you to that, advanced technologies and some of the best practices is a way to do it. NIST is we talked about OMB, but NIST is fantastic resource. So much guideline and time has been put into it, and that has been input. The input came from all the different, not only PhDs, but a lot of industries have contributed to some of the thoughts and ideas around it. So leveraging some of the guidelines that's already been put in place by NIST helps a lot, and NIST has a great already publications on zero trust. So I would say I follow some of those things.
And before that, cybersecurity. They to your point, they really have been at the forefront of developing guidelines for everything. Jennifer, I don't know if you want to add anything to what John just said before I kind of move on to what really will be my final question.
No, I agree. And I definitely agree with what he was saying about NIST guidance. NIST guidance is almost like my daily Bible. Again, it's something that the foundation of what we use across GAO as well, and working with them in collaboration and coordination as well. They are very instrumental in providing a lot of the what to do, how to do, what you recommend to do. So definitely use them, as well as OMB and CISA too. They just came out with their Zero Trust Maturity Model version 2. It's very helpful to show us how we can implement various zero trust requirements in a manner that is best fit for your various mission needs. Not two agencies are alike, and every mission is critical in its own right. And everyone is going to have to implement zero trust at the pace, at the time frame that's going to be permissible for them. And there's no one and done, like John just said, of course. And once you feel like you're done, there's always going to be a continual approach to gradually get to that next level, that next pillar, to even strengthen your environment to another level. So implementation of the ZTA components is just going to be a simultaneous endeavor, a continual endeavor to really strategize how you can best enhance these critical protections for your environment. So I really do encourage you to keep looking at the various guidance, because guidance always gets enhanced or updated. And perhaps ask all of your cyber specialists, what is the prioritization of the guidance? Sometimes there's so much guidance, it might be helpful to add what they would like for you to use in the priority order.
That's really, no, prioritization is really great. It's great. That's really great advice. As we near the end of our time together, I want to ask both of you, I mean, your final thoughts. I mean, two things really. What's the most important takeaway from, for our viewers from what we talked about today? But also, in all the years I've been doing this, a lot of folks, it's like, okay, there's a lot of great technology, but I don't really know where to begin, at my agency, or I don't really know, so two questions really, which is the most important takeaway, but also what's a good first step that, like, if you're sitting at your agency and you're like, okay, I don't, really know what to do with AI. We haven't started on zero trust. We haven't done, so like, what's a good first step to do? I'm going to start with you, Jennifer, and then I'll give John the last word.
Okay, so good first step. It's a team effort.
Yeah.
So cybersecurity is, again, it's not for those of us that just live, breathe, and just are these nerds that just love it to the day fulfills us. It's something that all of us can take part in being cyber smart, cyber aware, great tech citizens. I'm not telling you to go out and read everything, listen to podcasts, just be all things knowing, but ask, do your part to learn a little bit more about how you can be a little bit more vigilant in helping your organization to just be better stewards of what's around you. Phishing is going to continually be one of the most dangerous vectors for the ways cyber incidents come into our various organizations to cause damage. Mm-hmm. And we can each do our part to stay vigilant and not click on those links that come into our emails. And even understanding what that is, and again, why it matters is so important. So as we continue to roll out new exercises, new technologies, new tools, continue to seek assistance, continue to seek clarity, education as to what it is, why it matters, and how it's helping your organizations to become better security stewards to protect your various environments. It's going to be the start of really understanding more of how your organization is moving towards the future.
That's really great advice. And the best takeaway from today in your mind was?
I think I'm going to start being more of an AI enthusiast. It's here to stay, but there's some cybersecurity and privacy related risks to consider.
Yeah.
But it's here. It's here to stay.
John, get your thoughts. Like, if you're just sitting around where do you start with all of this? It's like, I can't dig through all of this. Where do you start? And what was your best takeaway that you would recommend from today's talk?
Yeah, one of the things I want to echo or maybe elaborate on what Jennifer said is that you got to work together. And the reason why, let's focus on what she kept on saying about why. The reason why agencies and departments need to work together because you're connected. Mm-hmm. These agencies can't work separate. Nothing works. Our federal government is built to work together. We have to share information. In order to work together efficiently and effectively, we have to trust each other. And how do you trust another agency or department if they haven't done their due diligence in maintaining the security, enhancing the security postures? And what if they, it's again, I'd rather work with an agency, and I know that if I have sensitive data that I need to share, I need to trust that agency has done the proper measurements and they're putting the proper practice and discipline in and constantly looking for enhancing their security posture. And that's important in order to stay connected, and agencies need to do that in order to function. Another thing is, for me, what is to let people, emphasize is that AI, it's a tool. Like AI, please, it's already, yes, the genie's out of the bottle. We know that, or however you want to say it, it's already done. AI is a tool. Use it smart to, help drive some efficiency, help maybe, again, if you've got skill gaps within your organization or a lack of skills on certain things, AI could be a tool to help bridge some of that gap. And in fact, from our side is that, I could take a mid-level network engineer and give him a right tool, and I can make him an expert and have him perform as an expert. So use AI as a tool. It's very important that it's not a replacement and it shouldn't be a substitute. It definitely can be something that you can do to supplement your process and your work.
That is great. Well, that is all the time that we have for today. I mean, Jennifer and John, I want to thank you both so much for joining me today. Such a great discussion on this and really valuable takeaways. And I want to thank our audience for tuning into this fantastic discussion. Today's panel will be available for on-demand viewing, so you can come back and rewatch or share it with your colleagues, and we hope you do. So for GovExec, I'm Constance Sayers, and take care.